Welcome. Today, we're diving into Eddington, the latest feature by Ari Aster, starring Joaquin Phoenix, Pedro Pascal, Emma Stone, Austin Butler, and more. This film, set in May 2020 in a fictional New Mexico town, offers a darkly comic, neo-Western satire on pandemic-era paranoia and social fracture. It premiered at Cannes on May 16, 2025, and hits theaters across the U.S. on July 18th. Picture a small town, dusty streets, a sheriff's office, tight-knit families, yet tension hangs heavy in the air. SARS-CoV-2 has arrived. Masks, mandates, isolation. Sheriff Joe Cross, played by Joaquin Phoenix, is a soft-spoken, introspective man, both a husband and a father, but he's deeply uneasy with mask mandates. His discomfort isn't rooted in political defiance. It's more personal, more internal. He has asthma. He feels suffocated, both literally and emotionally. As mandates roll in, he finds himself at odds with the town's mayor, Ted Garcia, played by Pedro Pascal. Garcia is everything Joe is not: charismatic, technology-forward, and politically ambitious. Joe is not your typical cinematic hero. He's thoughtful, quiet, but increasingly paranoid. He suspects that the town's pandemic safety measures, solar panels, tech surveillance, temperature scanning, may be more about control than health. And then there's his wife, Louise, played by Emma Stone. She's withdrawn, crafting dolls in silence, haunted by past trauma. Living with them is her mother, Dawn, a character who begins spiraling into internet conspiracies, echoing real-world rabbit holes. Meanwhile, their teen daughter watches everything unfold: the silence at home, the tension in town, and the growing divide online. Ted Garcia, the mayor, isn't evil. He's affable, polished, but his motives feel murky. His pandemic policies are framed as civic responsibility, yet his eagerness to implement tech solutions makes Joe suspicious. So what begins as a story about public health quickly morphs into something bigger: a clash between two ways of seeing the world, one rooted in preservation, the other in progress, and both deeply flawed. As Sheriff Joe and Mayor Garcia butt heads, the town starts to crack. Protesters show up. Rumors fly about experimental vaccines and government plots. Teenagers repost TikToks of theories they barely understand. The film weaves in pandemic fears, misinformation, digital radicalization, and even references to Black Lives Matter. One character, a teenage daughter of a black police officer, calls out the performative activism she sees around her, a piercing, sobering moment that captures the moral confusion many felt in 2020. What's powerful about Eddington is how Ari Aster uses satire, not just to provoke laughs or discomfort, but to mirror a kind of collective madness. He doesn't point fingers at one political side. Instead, he portrays a community where everyone, the sheriff, the mayor, the mothers, the kids, is overwhelmed by doubt, fear, and the desire to believe in something. The film becomes a social weather report, not about facts or villains, but about the emotional atmosphere that swelled during that strange, suspended year. Visually, the film is haunting. Aster paints the desert town with wide, anxious shots. The score, a collaboration between Daniel Pemberton and Bobby Krilic, creates a tense, vibrating sense of dread. You're never quite sure if you're watching a psychological breakdown or a spiritual reckoning. The atmosphere is surreal, sometimes even dreamlike, with characters wandering through silent landscapes, glued to their screens, repeating mantras they don't quite believe. Yet despite its stylized tone, the movie asks real questions. What happens when we stop trusting institutions or each other? How does fear warp our perception of community? What if everyone thinks they're the only sane one left? Eddington doesn't offer easy answers. It challenges viewers to sit with discomfort, to observe without rushing to judge. In that way, it feels more like an experience than a story. A long, simmering fever dream of modern America. If you're looking to deepen the themes explored in Eddington, I strongly recommend the book On Tyranny, 20 Lessons from the 20th Century by historian Timothy Snyder. It's a small, clear-eyed guide to recognizing the warning signs of democratic decline. Snyder doesn't preach, he explains, drawing on historical examples of how ordinary people let fear and misinformation unravel civil societies. His chapter on Be Calm When the Unthinkable Arrives could practically be printed on Eddington's poster. The book is both sobering and empowering, encouraging us to take small ethical actions, to resist chaos with thoughtfulness. So, should you watch Eddington? If you're drawn to cinema that distills collective trauma into narrative form, that confronts rather than comforts, this film may resonate deeply. Joaquin Phoenix delivers a powerful performance, filled with quiet panic and existential dread. Pedro Pascal adds layers of charm and contradiction. Emma Stone brings weight and sorrow in her subtle portrayal of Louise. And through it all, Ari Aster invites us to ask, not what happened to us, but what are we becoming? Pairing this film with On Tyranny offers something rare, an artistic and intellectual double lens into the forces that shape how we live together or fall apart. Together, they challenge us to stay alert, to listen with nuance, and maybe to rebuild what panic broke. Thanks for listening. If you choose to explore Eddington, I hope you watch with open eyes, not just for the drama on screen, but for the questions it reflects back at us. Stay curious and take care.